Hey guys, this is John, and I have come up with something here. And if you are interested in computer science and things like that, then you might be able to tell what this is just by looking at it. But this is a Turing machine, and it's a pretty simple one. It's pretty much the basic, um, like the lowest kind of level that you can get to, which is simply, a two symbol, a one or a zero. And in fact, let me just go ahead and, oh, I need to turn that on. Okay. All right, so this is a Turing machine. So if you are familiar with a Turing machine or not, a Turing machine is basically the grandfather of a computer. And so what it does, it has a couple different parts, but what you can see here is that in place of a roll of tape, I'm using, barrels, right? So barrels and a piston, what do you call that? Whatever you call it, piston, line, whatever. So the barrels, of course, can hold items, and because we have comparators here, they are going to detect whether that barrel has an item or not. And we have a dropper here that I just have filled with junk. And so that is what we use to write, which is going to give us another item or not. Yeah, I need to, let's just see if we can alter this program a little bit to make it faster. Let's see, so in place of going left, so let's do that. Okay. So that'll help it to erase a little bit faster, even though it's going to have to go all the way around now. All right, so some of the basic parts, we have a dropper here to give us a 1, and we have a hopper below that I currently cannot open to see what's inside of it, or, can't open the chest, but so basically whenever this torch turns off, that's going to allow the hopper to pull an item out, so that will, give us a 0 if there's a 1 there. And we have two different piston directions here. Oh, piston tape. Yeah, that's what they call it, coarse tape. So when one is active, the tape goes in one direction. When the other is active, the tape goes in the opposite direction. So it's a bidirectional piston tape, which I don't think I've ever seen. I don't know if anybody's ever had a need for one of these, but, it's pretty easy to make. Let's see. And so once this gets done, and I'm just going to go over some of the details of this because I'm going to include a world download for this if anybody wants to play around with it. So a Turing machine, so first of all, if you imagine that that's a piece of tape, right? And, theoretically it can be an infinitely long piece of tape. But right now we just have it going looped, just so you can, have something that can move back and forth. So anyway, a Turing machine has a piece of tape. It has something that can write a symbol to the tape. In this case, we only have two symbols, which is going to be the 1 and the 0. And then it also has a head that can read the current state of the tape to tell you what it is, so whether it's a 1 or a 0. And then, of course, you have the ability to move the tape right or left. So if we just go ahead and demonstrate that here, so we just wrote a 1. Now we can move the tape, and now we can write another number 1, or we can write a 0. Let's move the tape back and write another 0 to erase it. So this is basically the guts of a computer, because you have something that can run a program and you have memory, right? So a Turing machine, if you're not aware, a Turing machine can do pretty much everything. It can compute everything. So it can calculate numbers, so addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. It can do everything in both unary, and if you don't know what unary means, it just means like instead of saying, the single number 4, you just count out 1, 2, 3, 4. So it can do addition, subtraction, whatever, everything in unary, as well as binary. And it can pretty much do, just about anything that you want it to do to program, because all it is just, it's really a program and then it's memory. So if you wanted to, actually use this for calculation, then you would have to have some way of inputting your numbers, because, of course you would have to, put your numbers in and then run the program. But that's not what we're using it for today. So for today, what I did was, if you know what the Busy Beaver program is, then this is our first program is a 3-state Busy Beaver. So, I'm not too familiar with all this, because I'm more of a mechanic than I am, into computer science. But the Busy Beaver program, from what I, read, so there was a question of whether you could build a machine, because you have to remember this is back in the 1930s. So this was the first type of computer, and back then, the question came up, well, if you had a machine that could write to an infinitely long piece of tape, can the machine actually can it know that it has an infinite loop, and can it actually stop itself? And so I think the Busy Beaver was written to kind of prove that you can actually write a program that can write as many ones as it can, and then come to a stop. So the way that this Turing machine works, the way that any Turing machine works, is that you have different states, right? And that's what your program occupies. So in the case of Busy Beaver, we're using state A, state B, and state C, right? So we're using all 3 of those for one program. So with 3 different states, the most ones that you can write to a piece of tape and then bring it to a stop whenever it's completed is 6, So I'll go ahead and show that here. So this is the Busy Beaver. I guess you could call it that, an algorithm, right? So it's just going to write. And if we look at the program here, you can see where the redstone is active. And it's about to be complete. Okay, so there's our Busy Beaver program. And so I'll kind of go over some of the things that make up the system and how it works. Okay, so like I said, you can write a 1, you can write a 0, you can move the tape, right? So the head, what's actually reading the state? Oops, I went one too far. Okay, so that's this bottom gray line here, right? So you can see how it's powered now, because we actually have a 1 there. So I had to come up with these, all these things kind of on my own. So the way that this works is, for state A, we have 2 different locations. So we have a 1 and a 0. And what that corresponds to is that at the current location, in this state in time, right now, the head is detecting a 1, okay? So then if we were to activate state 1, or state A, then it would activate the line for 1, right? So if we were, oh, I do that, been doing that a lot lately. So if we had a 0 there to where this line was not powered, then at state A, it's going to run the 0 line. Okay? So everything that we have, all the controls up there come out right here. Okay, so we have the ability to write a 1 to the tape, the ability to write a 0 to the tape, move the tape to the right, move the tape to the left, and then here we have our other states that are, going to be utilized by the program. So this is a line to activate state A, a line to activate state B, and then a line to activate state C. Okay. So the way that this works is that if I were to turn it on, what it would do was if it detected a 0, then it would send power up here, which would turn off the torch, which would activate either the 0 or the 1 line for state A. And then depending on the program, what it would do, so in this case, at state A, if it detected a 0, then it would write a 1, it would move the tape to the right, and then on its next state, it would go into state B, because we're above the B. So then on the next state, if it were also detecting a 0, so we're going to go to B, and say if it's a 0, then don't write anything, move to the right, and then go to state C. And then you can go to state C, and on and on and on. You can see that if it's a 0, then you write a 1, move to the left, and then go back to state C. Okay, so that is how you write a program. You find out, so at the state and time, whatever is under the head, whether it's a 1 or a 0, what action do I want it to take, and then what state do I want it to go into next. So that's how it operates, and I'll go ahead and show you. Let's see. Let's go ahead and clear this. And oops, nothing there. And I have an erase program, but I don't know what I wrote it to do, so I'm just going to clear all this manually. Alright, so the next state that we have, the D and E, man, I keep falling like that. So the D and E, D is pink, the E is brown. So you could say that for state D, if we detect a 0, we're going to write a 1, we're going to go to the right, and then we're going to go to E. So then at state E, if it detects a 0, so it's not going to write anything, it's going to go to the right, and then it's going to go back to state D, right? So you can kind of see what it's going to do. It's going to write a 1, go to the next space, write a 0, go to the next space, write a 1, go to the next space, write a 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, on and on and on. Okay, so if we go ahead and run the program, did I turn it on? Yeah. Alright, so there's our state D, then E, then D. Okay, so you can see it's going to write 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. And this program will actually bring itself to a halt, but I just have an off switch here, so I'm just going to turn that off for a second. Okay. So state F, which is the erase program, let's see what I got. So if it's at 0, then it doesn't write anything, it moves to the right, and it goes back to F. If it is a 1, it's going to write a 0, move to the right, and then go back to F. Okay. So let's see what it does. Oh, it's going to loop all the way around. Well, I don't want you to loop because that'll take forever. So we're just going to change that to go to the left. So we're going to go to state F, which is here. And instead of going to the right, we're going to go to the left. All right. Okay. Yeah, so it'll eventually read and erase the ones. Okay, so that is pretty much how it operates. So like I said, this is a special little gate that I had to make. And I'm not powering the entire machine with a clock. So the way that this works is that when a state is selected, so if we go back here to F, okay, so when a state is selected, that torch is going to turn off, which is going to allow this one to come on. And that's going to come into this special little time delay that I made. And this is actually adjustable. So I have an adjustable time delay here. And then from there, it's just going to go back up to the top to, keep turning the torch off, right? Because that's what actually runs the program. So you can see here that, excuse me, that when that torch turns off, this line of dust turns off, and we can see that these torches activate. And so because it's detecting a 0, that's what it's going to do, right? There's nothing there, so it's going to keep activating that line. And that's why, I don't have a clock, because all the clocks are internal. So I was hoping that I could get it to be a little bit faster, but the 2 setting here on the torch is about as fast as it can go without breaking, so I just have them all set to 2. So anyway, one last thing to go over. It is very easy to write a program. So, if you did want to download this, so what I have here, the stop switch just turns everything off. So the torches just, keep everything locked. And then down here, if you see the comparators here, that's going to, see it says off as disallow. So while I'm programming it, the torch is what's in power to these lines, and I don't want it to, just start firing this and then firing pistons and all that. So you just turn that off to program it. But let's see, so I already had something written for G, but let's see. So I'll show you just how easy it is to program one of these. So just say for G, if we're at 0, then I want to write a 1. I want it to go to the right, and then I want to go back to G, which is going to be the light gray one. Okay, and then if we detect a 1, then I want it to do nothing, and I want it to go to the left, and I want it to go back to G. Alright, and so I've only included the main switches for the 3 main programs, but if you wanted to write your own program, then I just have these little lines down here that you can just press to activate it. Of course, once you do that. Oh, yeah, and because there's no 1 there. Yeah, let's see. I'll tell you what. Alright, so that's going to cycle through, so we'll just go over a table and then let that work itself out. So if you were to Google Turing machine tables, you might see something like this with a bunch of numbers. So this is actually the program, the Busy Beaver program. This is how you would read it out. Okay. This is the D&E program, and then this is the F program. Okay. So you can see we have our 3 states listed up here. So a lot of times for the Turing machine things, you're not going to see anything like a table like this. You're going to see like a circle, right? So a circle going to another circle, and then in circles all over the place. And each circle is going to have, a symbol or a letter or something inside the circle to tell you what that state is. All right, so that would be like your state A, B, and C. Okay. So first you can say if we're at state A and there is a 0 on the head, so we're reading a 0, then we want it to write a 1. We want to move the tape to the right, and then we want to go to state B. Okay, so at state B, if it detects a 0, it's going to write a 0 again, which is why I included that in parentheses, because you don't have to write a 0 when there's already a 0, right? So state B, write a 0, go to the right, and then go to state C. State C, if there's a 0 there, write a 1, go to the left, and then go back to C. And then if there's a 1, and I included these in parentheses just so you could be aware, because we're using a dropper that just spits items into the barrels. You can't have, 2 1s. So if you were to program something where, you already have a 1, you can't put another item in there, so you can't program it with the 1 again. But the way that these work, they just use redundant symbols, So even though, we're at 1, we don't need to write another 1. The table is still going to tell you to write a 1 at 1. You get what I mean? So that's just redundant, so you don't have to put a torch there. So like if we go to state A and look at the 1 line, so state A is orange, and we look at the 1 line, so it wants us to write a 1, but you see I did not include a torch there, because, if there's a 1 there, then we don't need to try to write another 1. Okay. And let's just go ahead and turn that off. Okay. So that's the way the tables work. It's basically just write a symbol, move in a direction, and then what's your next state going to be. Okay. So D and E, you can see pretty simple. F is also simple. So F was, if you're at 0, then write a 0, move to the left, and then go back to F. And if you have a 1, write a 0, move to the right, and then go back to F, which I think I did change that up, but let's see. Yeah, so that is how it would be. So if I were to go ahead and activate F, move to the right, yeah. See, so it's just going to bounce back and forth, erasing the 1s. So it's pretty neat how you can make programs like this so easy. There's no overly complicated CPU. You don't need, to build 256K of RAM in Minecraft, things like that, which you can if you want to, by all means. But, very simple, straightforward computer, very easy to program. And the thing that actually got me looking into this, so I've been on this kick about trying to make tic-tac-toe AI in Minecraft, and I have only seen a couple of people that have actually been able to do it. So there were 2 people that I know of that made like literal AI, which is just hundreds of torches and lines of dust and things like that, and it's very complicated. But you can look them up on YouTube and you can see a couple of them. Now, some of the other ones actually just use a randomizer. So when you push a button, it just randomly picks any other symbol for the computer to play. And what I mean by AI is that it actually, computes what its best move is going to be. So in the case of the ones that use the torches, that is essentially like a neural network. But I have also seen one that I think used the Minimax algorithm, and that was probably the smallest one. But so in trying to work out how to make stuff like that in Minecraft, I actually got into looking at Turing machines because, you can actually use a Turing machine, from what I've seen, to, play as the computer to play against you in tic-tac-toe. So I just thought it would be neat if I could make something that is, just this simple, maybe a little bit more complicated, that can actually, have like a programmed AI in Minecraft. But anyway, we'll see if I'm able to figure that out. So that's about all for the video. Again, I'm gonna make a world download, so if you want to play around, you can make your own programs if you like. Just go over the way that I made these. These are in sets of 3. So you can see here that if you wanted to program, this is J, K, and L, then you can program those in sets of 3. So like if I got finished with J and I wanted to go to K, then I'll put a torch. Do I have this turned on or off? Okay, just making sure. So if I'm at J and I wanted to go to K, then I would just put a torch here, or likewise, if I'm at K, I wanted to go to L. So you could write your own little programs and then just go down below and put a button down here, and then you could start up the program. And then, if it's a never-ending program, you can just switch this to off, right? So that's your on and off. If you want to run a program, you have to turn that on. If you want it to stop everything, just turn that off. And likewise, when you're writing a program, make sure that this is switched off to where, these two comparators cannot send a signal through. Because what you don't want to happen is to have the piston tape up here break, because what it would do is just say push a barrel there, and then our barrel here, would be missing. So then you just have to, it's easy to fix, you just power the dust for a second and it'll push the barrel back and that's it. But it's much easier just to turn that off when you're trying to program it. Okay, so I think that's about it. Thanks for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.